All right, you guys, let's go ahead and get started here with example 1. Once again, we want to go ahead and solve for x here, guys. Want to go ahead and solve for x. So in this case, guys, one thing, whenever we're working with these types of expressions, anything that you see that's being squared or inside of parentheses, that's actually going to be towards the end that we're going to be working with. So our goal in this case, once again, is to solve for x. So we actually want to go ahead and first get rid of this 1/3. Now, in order for us to get rid of fractions, we actually have to multiply by its reciprocal. So in this case, the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3. So I'm actually going to go ahead and multiply both sides here by a 3 or 3 over 1. I could do 3 over 1. That would be the reciprocal. This actually cancels out both the 3 and the 1. And on the bottom, we have x plus 4 squared equal to 48 times 3 over 1, or just 3, is going to be 144. Our next step in this case, guys, is to get rid of the squared. So in order for us to get rid of the squared, we're going to go ahead and take the square root. And by taking the square root, it is going to be canceling out the squared and the square root. So we have x plus 4 equals, in this case, the square root of 144 is 12. But since we're taking the square root of an equation, we do need to include the plus or minus 12. All right. Next step in this case, guys, is to subtract 4 to both sides. Subtract 4. And that's going to give us x equals -4 plus or minus 12. And from here, guys, we're almost done here. We actually want to go ahead and just break this up so we can see our two solutions. So x equals -4 plus a 12, and x equals -4 minus a 12. In this case, guys, once again, there is two solutions because we do have a positive and a negative 12. That's why we have a positive and a negative. So in this case, guys, x equals -4 plus 12. So that's x equals 8. Or in this case, x equals -4 minus 12 is going to be -16. So that is our answer there. Now, before we move on to the next question, guys, I do want to go ahead and write down my steps. So starting off with step 1, what's the first thing in this case that we did to solve the equation? So first thing I did here is we actually multiply by 3, or 3 over 1, multiply by 3. Step 2 in this case, guys, is seeing how we go from this point to this point. In this case, guys, we actually took the square root. So take the square root is our next step. Take the square root. And then in this case, guys, the final step here to go from here to there, or step 3, would be to subtract 4. All right, so we're just doing a little justification here on what we're doing in each of our steps. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next one, guys. And in this case, it says Abraham solved an equation, a quadratic equation. What are the steps? So in this case, guys, once again, it works more or less the same as the previous one. The only thing different is that we now have a few more things to move or eliminate. Now, in this case, we have the 1/5, the squared, and the -2. Goal in this case, once again, is to solve for x. Now, when it comes to having multiple things to move in, or multiple numbers in this case to move, we do want to go ahead and first move anything that's being added or subtracted. And this is just to make our life simpler because we do have a fraction, so we do have to deal with that fraction as well. So I'm actually going to go ahead and move first the 12, and I'm going to go ahead and add, or the 2, I'm sorry. And we're going to go ahead and add 2 to both sides. And that's going to leave me with 1 over 5 times x plus 3 squared equals 20. Now, in this case, guys, in the previous problem, we did see how to get rid of that 1/5. So in order for us to get rid of that 1/5, we do have to multiply by the reciprocal, which in this case is 5 over 1. And what we do to one side, we do have to repeat it to the other. So this is times 5 over 1. That, in this case, cancels out the 5 over 1 and the 1/5. And I have x plus 3 squared equal to 20 times 5 is 100. All right. Next up in this case, guys, is we already got rid of the fraction. We want to go ahead and now focus on the squared. In order for us to get rid of the squared, we do the opposite, which is take the square root. By taking the square root, once again, that is going to eliminate the squared and the square root, and we're left with x plus 3 equals square root of 100 in this case is going to be 10, so plus or minus 10. All right. From there, guys, once again, goal is to isolate the variable, so we need to move the 3. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3 to both sides. And x in this case equals negative 3 plus or minus 10. All right. Final step in this case, guys, is to separate these and find their solutions. So I have negative 3 plus 10. And negative 3 minus 10. So negative 3 plus 10 is 7, and negative 3 minus 10 is negative 13. All right. Now, once again, we are going to be justifying our steps here. So in step 1, which is here, step 1, how did we go from this first original equation to here? And in this case, we actually multiply. By 5, all right? Step 2 in this case, guys, step 2, how do we go from here to there? And in this case, guys, after multiplying by 5, we're going to go ahead and, oh wait, sorry, I think we messed up here, or I messed up. This is actually step 2, and this here is, in step 1, we actually add 2. So my mistake, guys, my mistake there. Add 2, multiply by 5. Now, step 3, in this case, is to take the square root. And step 4 is to subtract 3. Right? So those are our steps. Now let's go ahead and move to our last example. And in this case, guys, in our last example, they are telling us here that we have Eva who is solving the quadratic equation, and she does have a missing step. So there is a missing step here. Now in this case, guys, I do want to go ahead and find that missing step here. So starting off in this case, I want to go ahead and see how we go from 2 times x minus 3 squared plus 6 equal to 14 to a 2 times x minus 3 squared equal to 8. And in this case, what we did in this case is the first step is to subtract 6. That was our first step. First step in this case, guys, is to subtract 6. That's how in this case we got 8, so 14 minus 6 is 8. So next step in this case, guys, is we want to go ahead and get rid of that 2. Now, in order for us to get rid of that 2, we actually have to do the opposite of the operation that's happening. So when you have a parentheses and a number next to each other, that's actually multiplication. So opposite multiplication here is division. So these 2 cancel out, and I'm left with x minus 3 squared equals 8 divided by 2 is 4. So in this case, step 2 is to divide by 2. Okay. And then in this case, guys, from here to there, step 3 would be to take the square root. And then step 4 from here to there would